Good morning, dear friend. Picture this. You step out onto your porch, warm mug in hand. The air's still soft with the hush of early day. The light hasn't quite ripened yet, and a breeze gently teases the leaves of a few potted plants beside your chair. There's no rush, no big list, just you and your little garden one that asks so little yet gives so much. That's the kind of garden we'll be dreaming up today. You see, gardening doesn't have to mean aching knees, heavy shovels, or days lost in the dirt. At this stage of life, it's not about doing more, it's about enjoying more. A container garden can be your sanctuary, even if it's just a few pots on the steps or a windowsill that catches the sun. It can bring joy, color, and even fragrance, all without bending, digging, or fussing. And today, we're going to explore plants that practically take care of themselves, perennials that come back year after year blooming and thriving with minimal effort. No fancy fertilizers, no constant watering, and no back-breaking maintenance. Just beauty that lasts. So, pull up a seat. Let's wander through ideas that honor your pace and celebrate the garden that grows with you, not in spite of you. Whether your space is a shady balcony, a sunny patio, or a single peaceful pot by the back door, you'll find something here that fits just like an old glove. You don't need money. You don't need youth. You only need imagination and a little patch of light. Do you remember the lace-trimmed handkerchiefs our mothers used to keep tucked in their apron pockets? Soft, dainty, and always faintly scented with powder or lavender. That's what dianthus feels like in a garden. A little old-fashioned, a little frilly, and full of quiet charm. Also lovingly called Pink's dianthus, is a compact perennial that fits beautifully into small pots, window boxes, or even as a gentle edge around larger containers. The flowers themselves are like tiny ruffled skirts, soft pinks, clean whites, and deep reds, often with a feathery or fringed border that adds a whimsical texture. It's the sort of bloom you might lean down to admire without even realizing you're smiling. But what really makes dianthus a lazy gardener's dream is its scent. Sweet and spicy, it brings to mind cloves and garden spice racks filling the warm air around your porch, without a single spritz of anything artificial. It's nature's perfume, subtle but unforgettable. To keep dianthus happy, all it really asks for is full sun and well-drained soil. That's it. In fact, it doesn't like sitting in soggy pots, so make sure you have a container with drainage holes and avoid overwatering. Once it's established, it becomes drought-tolerant, perfect if you sometimes forget your watering can on the other side of the yard. A little deadheading just pinching off the spent blooms will keep the plant blooming from spring through fall. And in warmer areas, it may even keep its foliage during winter, offering a quiet bit of greenery when everything else takes its rest. It's compact, sweet, and as forgiving as a good friend. If you're looking for a plant that brings beauty without burden, fragrance without fuss, dianthus might be the one. Still useful, still graceful, just like you. Just saying the word lavender seems to slow the breath, doesn't it? It's a name that brings to mind quiet mornings, soft linens, and sun-drenched hills in Provence, even if your garden is just a corner of the porch. Lavender is one of those rare perennials that looks elegant, smells divine, and asks for almost nothing in return. For a lazy gardener, or shall we say a wise gardener who knows the value of rest, lavender is a gift. This sun-loving plant thrives on simplicity. It craves full light and dry, well-drained soil. In fact, the more you fuss with it, the less it likes it. So if you tend to forget a watering or two, don't worry, lavender prefers it that way. A terracotta or clay pot is ideal because it helps wick away extra moisture, keeping those roots dry and happy. Lavender doesn't just sit there looking pretty. Its purple flower spikes and silvery leaves are a beacon for bees, butterflies, and hummingbirds. Even the smallest balcony can become a pollinator's paradise with just one container of this fragrant favorite. And beyond the blooms, there's the joy of harvest. You can snip a few stems, tie them with twine, and tuck them into dresser drawers or under your pillow. Their scent will linger for months, bringing calm to even the busiest days. Or place a small dried bundle beside your favorite chair, a quiet reminder that peace is always close at hand. This plant doesn't just fill a pot, it fills a moment. When you plant lavender, you're not just growing flowers. You're growing stillness. You're growing connection to nature, to memory, and to yourself. And in a world that often moves too fast, that might be the most generous thing a garden can offer. Have you ever opened a well-loved artist's paint box and found all the colors you didn't expect? Deep plums, soft silvers, warm peaches, mossy greens. That's what heuchera brings to a garden pot. Also known as coral bells, it's a foliage-first perennial that turns every shady container into a work of living art. Unlike plants that bloom and fade, heuchera stays beautiful all season and in many climates all year. Its leaves shimmer in tones that feel like velvet under your fingertips. You might choose a variety with rich burgundy ruffles, or perhaps a silvery green edged-in rose. Some look like they've been dusted with frost, others like a sunset captured in leaves. And when it does flower, usually in late spring, it sends up delicate stems of tiny bell-shaped blooms like garden jewelry. This plant is especially suited for those quiet corners of your patio where sun plays shy under a covered porch tucked beside a railing or nestled beneath taller plants. It thrives in part to full shade and prefers well-drained soil. Water it when the soil feels dry to the touch, but never let it sit in standing water. As we like to say, moist, not muddy. One of heuchera's most lovely gifts is its structure. Whether in a solo pot or paired with other shade lovers like ferns or hostas, its mounded shape and bold colors bring balance and depth without needing constant attention. And if you're layering a container garden, heuchera is the perfect middle, not too tall, not too trailing, just the right kind of presence. For those who may be past the days of kneeling and digging, heuchera is a kind companion. It asks very little, but it shows up with style. It's proof that in the quietest places, beauty often whispers and still gets noticed. Do you remember the joy of a sunbeam falling right onto your kitchen table? That golden warmth that made everything, your teacup, your hands, even the floor, feel like it was glowing. That's the feeling coreopsis brings to your container garden. Coreopsis, sometimes called tick seed, is a cheerful perennial that blooms in bright yellow buttercream or even golden orange little sunbursts dancing on airy stems. It's one of those plants that doesn't try too hard, yet somehow always looks radiant, like the friend who shows up smiling no matter the weather. Perfect for sunny patios, steps, or balconies. Coreopsis thrives in full sun and poor soil. That's right, poor soil. It doesn't need compost or fancy potting mixes. In fact, too rich soil can make it leggy. All it really wants is light, a bit of drainage, and your occasional glance. Water when dry, trim off spent blooms to encourage more, though honestly, even if you forget to deadhead, it'll keep going. This is a plant that doesn't sulk. It just keeps offering its joyful blooms week after week through the long days of summer. Its airy texture also makes it a wonderful companion in mixed containers. Pair it with trailing vines, blue-toned flowers, or spiky grasses. It plays well with others, always adding brightness without stealing the spotlight. If you're someone who's learned to find joy in the little things, the laugh of a grandchild, the way toast smells in the morning, the feel of the sun on your back, then coreopsis is your plant. Not dramatic, not demanding, just steady, sunny, and full of light. And isn't that what we all hope to be as we grow older? Some flowers remind you of bonfires at dusk, warm, glowing, and full of life. That's Gaillardia, often called blanket flower. It's like a sunset wrapped in petals spilling over your container in rich reds, golden yellows, and burnt oranges. Gaillardia is one of those joyful perennials that seems to say, "Look at me," but in the most generous way. It never pouts. It never wilts in protest. It just keeps blooming even in tough conditions, as if to reassure you you're doing just fine. This plant thrives in full sun, which makes it perfect for south-facing patios or spots that get a good dose of afternoon light. And it doesn't care much for pampering. Poor soil. That's fine. Forgot to water yesterday. No worries. As long as the pot drains well and you give it occasional watering during dry spells, Gaillardia will reward you with color that keeps on going from early summer into fall. The flowers themselves are daisy-like, with petals that fade from deep red at the center to golden yellow at the tips, like they were dipped in fire. And if you leave the seed heads on after the bloom fades, they add a bit of rustic charm plus a snack for small birds in cooler months. In a container, Gaillardia pairs beautifully with soft grasses or blue-toned companions like catmint or salvia. But it's also stunning all on its own, bold, brave, and full of color. There's something comforting about a plant that flourishes even in less than perfect conditions. It reminds us that thriving doesn't always mean having everything just right. Sometimes it means blooming anyway, just like we've learned to do. If you want a container that feels like warmth itself, let Gaillardia light it up. Some plants don't need to shout to be noticed. They simply are steady, elegant, and comforting, like a soft shawl over your shoulders on a chilly morning. That's the magic of hosta. Hostas are foliage queens. Their broad, bold leaves unfurl, slowly bringing a feeling of calm and fullness to any shady spot. And they come in an astonishing range of hues: deep forest greens, smoky blues, creamy whites, and gold-edged variegations that shimmer like light through lace curtains. Just one hosta in a large pot can turn a quiet corner into a serene retreat. They thrive in partial to full shade, which makes them perfect for spaces that other sun-hungry plants avoid, under an awning beside the porch swing or nestled beneath a patio umbrella. The only real request they make is consistently moist soil and a roomy pot that lets their roots stretch comfortably. And here's a little secret hostas love: companionship. Try pairing one with a trailing plant like creeping jenny or a mound of hauchera at its feet. The textures play off each other like old friends, creating depth and balance with almost no effort on your part. In midsummer, tall, elegant spikes rise from the leaves, each one tipped with delicate bell-shaped flowers. Some are scented, some not, but all bring an air of refinement, like a linen tablecloth laid over a worn but beloved table. Worried about slugs? Don't be. In containers, hostas are easier to protect. Keep the pot slightly elevated or use a copper ring around the base and you'll likely avoid the nibblers. And while hostas do go dormant in winter, that's nothing to fear. Like us, they rest, and come spring, they rise again, fresh and full of life. With a hosta in a pot, you're not just growing a plant, you're cultivating peace. Some plants are like the old friends who always show up on time, never make a fuss, and leave you feeling grateful they were there. That's the hardy geranium, not the flashy kind you see in store-bought baskets, but its perennial cousin, often called crane's bill. Hardy geraniums form tidy mounds of soft, often slightly crinkled leaves, and they bloom with gentle 5-petal flowers in shades of pink, blue, lavender, or white. They don't demand attention, but once they settle in, they keep offering color from spring right through summer with hardly any coaxing. They're wonderfully adaptable, growing well in full sun to partial shade. If your porch gets dappled afternoon light, or your balcony swings from sunny to cloudy as the day shifts, this plant won't mind one bit. It handles a range of soils too. Just make sure your container drains well and you're already ahead. When the first flush of flowers begins to fade, you can give the plant a light trim, nothing strenuous, and it will often bounce right back with another round of blooms. It's the kind of feedback we all like: gentle encouragement, beautiful results. Hardy geraniums also make wonderful partners in mixed pots. Their soft forms spill slightly over edges without overwhelming their neighbors. They pair well with taller bloomers like salvia or echinacea, and with trailers like ivy or creeping jenny. Even when not in bloom, their foliage stays fresh and tidy, a welcome sight when other plants start to look a little tired. This is a plant that quietly fills in the gaps, adds softness and color, and never asks for more than you have to give. In a world full of high-maintenance demands, the hardy geranium reminds us how much value there is in being steady, kind, and quietly beautiful. Have you ever known someone who never complained no matter the heat, the drought, or the long day? That's sedum in plant form. Tough, steady, and unbothered, this succulent perennial practically thrives on being left alone. Also known as stonecrop sedum, is one of the best-kept secrets of lazy container gardening. With fleshy, water-storing leaves that glisten like polished jade or soft blue-green coins, it asks for very little and gives back so much. You can place it in full sun, forget to water it for a few days, even a week, and it'll keep going strong and unfazed. There are many types of sedum, from upright varieties to low-growing ground covers that spill gently over the edge of pots. The flowers appear later in summer and into fall, tiny star-shaped clusters in soft pinks, yellows, or deep burgundy that draw bees and butterflies like a magnet. Because sedum prefers dry, well-drained soil, it's especially well-suited to containers. Choose a shallow or wide pot. Even a cracked ceramic bowl or vintage dish will do, as long as there's a drainage hole. Group a few different types of sedum together and you'll have a container full of contrasting textures and hues that evolve with the season. Sedum also plays beautifully with others. It's lovely next to tall swaying grasses or the soft purples of lavender. Its sculptural shape adds a solid calming element to any arrangement, like a rock in the stream. And when cooler months arrive, some varieties take on rosy tones or bronze hues, a subtle farewell to the season that feels dignified and gentle. In every way, sedum reminds us that resilience can be beautiful, that being strong doesn't mean being loud, and that even in the hottest, hardest moments, a quiet kind of grace can still bloom. Imagine a plant that dances in the breeze, smells softly herbal, and welcomes bees with open arms, all while asking next to nothing from you. That's catmint. Graceful, silvery, and endlessly blooming. It's the kind of garden companion you didn't know you needed until it was quietly filling your world with color and calm. Often mistaken for lavender at first glance, catmint nepeta is its own kind of gentle wonder. Its soft gray-green leaves form a billowy mound, and from early spring through fall, it sends up delicate spires of purple-blue flowers that sway like chimes in the wind. The scent is subtle, more earthy than sweet, but there's something grounding about it, something that makes you want to linger just a little longer. Catmint is nearly foolproof in containers. It loves full sun, tolerates heat, and doesn't complain if the soil dries out between waterings. In fact, the less you baby it, the better it performs. That makes it ideal for gardeners who prefer admiring over maintaining those who've earned a slower rhythm and a little more ease. One of catmint's greatest gifts is what it invites. Bees adore it. Butterflies visit it often. Even hummingbirds may stop by. With just 1 or 2 pots, you can create a quiet, buzzing corner of life and movement right there on your steps or patio. And when the first flush of flowers begins to fade, a simple trim with garden scissors can bring on a fresh wave of blooms. No chemicals, no fertilizers, just a gentle haircut and a bit of patience. Pair it with sedum for a resilient sun-loving duo, or soften a tall container planting with its graceful drape over the edge. It's also lovely all on its own, where its silver tones can catch the light and calm the space. In a world that often feels rushed, catmint teaches us to grow slow to bloom often and to offer beauty without asking much in return. There's something bold and hopeful about salvia, like a flag of color waving in the breeze, calling out to life. Come closer. And come they do. Bees, butterflies, hummingbirds, all drawn to the spikes of vivid purple, red, or blue that seem to glow against the heat of summer. If you have a spot that gets too hot, too bright, or too dry for other plants, salvia is your friend. It thrives in full sun and handles high temperatures with quiet grace. Once established, it's drought-tolerant and doesn't mind a bit of neglect, ideal for a patio pot or balcony where watering isn't always top of mind. Its shape is upright and proud, with tall flower stalks rising above leafy mounds like candle flames. And those flowers long-lasting and vibrant, bringing drama and joy all summer long. You can encourage more blooms with a light trim after the first flush, just a gentle snip to say, "Thank you, more please." In containers, salvia is stunning on its own, especially in a deep blue ceramic pot or a rustic terracotta urn. But it also shines as the vertical element in a mixed planting. Try it with soft catmint trailing verbena or a spiller like creeping jenny for a beautiful contrast of form and color. And while you're sitting quietly nearby enjoying your tea or resting your feet, don't be surprised if you spot wings, tiny hummingbirds darting from bloom to bloom, bees pausing mid-air, butterflies swirling in the sun. Salvia doesn't just fill space, it fills it with life. It's a reminder that even in the heat, even in the dry spells, beauty can rise bold and unafraid, inviting others to come closer and linger a while. There's a hush that ferns bring, like stepping into a quiet forest after a long, noisy day. Their soft, arching fronds don't shout or shine, but they fill a space with peace. If you have a shady corner on your patio, a dim nook by the porch, or a spot where blooms struggle, a fern might be just the touch of green your soul has been asking for. Ferns have a timeless elegance. Varieties like Japanese painted fern maidenhair or autumn fern bring subtle colors, silvery grays, deep greens, even hints of copper and layered textures that flutter slightly in the breeze. There's no need for petals when leaves can be this graceful. They thrive in rich, well-drained soil and appreciate consistent moisture, not soggy, just evenly damp. A plastic or glazed pot works well here as it helps hold moisture better than terracotta. And because ferns don't need full sun, they're perfect for porches that get filtered light or even stay shaded all day. What's especially lovely about ferns is their ability to soften a space. Their lacy fronds drape gently over container edges or rise like green fountains from the center of a pot. They make everything around them feel more restful, more still. They're particularly beautiful when paired with other shade lovers like hostas, heuchera, or lamium. And here's a tip: ferns like to be left alone. Once settled, they ask for little more than the occasional sip of water and the trimming of any browned fronds. They don't need feeding. They don't bloom and fade. They just stay quietly beautiful from spring until frost. Some people overlook ferns because they don't flower, but in truth, they bring something rarer. A sense of calm, a feeling of the forest, a soft sigh that says, "You're home now." And really, isn't that what we're all looking for? Some flowers feel like they were born on the prairie, strong, sun-kissed, and a little wild. That's the coneflower. Known formally as echinacea, it's a perennial with rugged roots and a soft, daisy-like face. The kind of plant that keeps blooming even when the days get hot, the watering can goes untouched, and the wind gets bold. Coneflowers thrive in full sun and tolerate poor soil, dry spells, and even a bit of neglect. That makes them perfect for containers in sunny spots where other plants might wilt. Once established, they're deeply rooted literally and figuratively, which means they won't need daily tending or constant fuss. Their blooms are bold and uplifting, long, upright petals in hues of pink, purple, orange, or white, radiating around a raised cone center. That center isn't just for show, it holds seeds that become a feast for goldfinches and other songbirds as the season shifts into fall. It's one of the few plants that continues to give even after its petals have dropped. If you have a large pot, coneflowers make a wonderful central anchor. Add in a few spillers like trailing verbena or creeping jenny, and you've created a full layered look with very little effort. And if you forget to deadhead, don't worry. The seed heads are beautiful in their own right, offering a rustic charm that fits right in with fall decor. Coneflowers remind us of something important: beauty doesn't always come in delicate packages. Sometimes it's bold, resilient, a little wild around the edges, and yet still nurturing for the bees, the birds, and the gardener who needs a little less work and a little more joy. It's the kind of plant that feels like a hymn to survival, to blooming right where you are. Have you ever spilled a handful of colorful buttons across the table? Tiny, joyful, and bright. That's exactly what calabrachoa feels like in a garden pot. Often called million bells, this charming trailing plant brings a soft, tumbling cascade of color to any container, like garden confetti that never needs sweeping up. The flowers look like miniature petunias, but unlike their fussier cousins, calabrachoa is remarkably easygoing. It thrives in containers, especially hanging baskets, window boxes, or tall pots, where its vines can gently spill and sway. Each tiny bloom lasts for days, and with dozens opening at once, the show is nonstop from spring until frost. Color choices are endless: soft pastels, deep purples, fire reds, buttery yellows, even dual-toned patterns that look hand-painted. You can match your mood, your porch cushions, or just let it be a delightful surprise each time you walk by. Care is simple: full to partial sun, well-drained soil, and regular watering, but never soggy feet. A container with good drainage is key, and if you forget to water for a day or two, it usually bounces right back with grace. A little occasional trimming keeps it tidy, though many varieties trail so beautifully that a wild, windswept look only adds to the charm. What's especially lovely is how well calabrachoa plays with others. Tuck it around a spiky centerpiece, pair it with soft grasses, or let it hug the base of a tall plant like salvia. It adds movement and cheer wherever it grows. In many ways, it mirrors the joy of aging gracefully, not in grandeur or height, but in color and spirit, and in the way it brightens everything it touches. And isn't that the kind of beauty we all want to offer? Some plants are quiet background players, but not lamium. This little ground hugger may be soft and low to the soil, but it sparkles like a silver thread woven into the green. In a shady container, it brings gentle color, light, and charm without ever asking for the spotlight. Lamium is often chosen for its foliage, and rightly so. The leaves come in soft green edged with cream or more strikingly silvery centers rimmed in green like little hand mirrors catching the light. And then, when you least expect it, it blooms tiny clusters of purple, pink, or white blossoms tucked between the leaves like whispers between old friends. It's perfect for those dim, damp corners where other plants sulk under a covered patio at the base of a taller hosta, or flowing from a planter tucked beside your favorite garden bench. Lamium enjoys part to full shade, and it doesn't need much beyond decent soil and occasional watering. What's especially wonderful is its trailing habit. Planted at the edge of a container, Lamium will spill gracefully over the rim, softening hard lines and adding a touch of movement. It partners beautifully with upright plants like ferns or heuchera, or with flowering perennials like hardy geraniums or astilbe. It's a set it and forget it type of plant, reliable, gentle, and quietly dazzling. And for those of us who know the power of quiet presence, Lamium feels like an old friend who doesn't need much conversation to be comforting. If your garden space includes shady spots, or you just love a touch of silver in your arrangements, Lamium is a gift. It brings light where others don't. It brightens without effort. And it shows that even the smallest plants, when placed with care, can glow. Some plants don't stand tall or bloom boldly, but they make everything around them look better. Creeping Jenny is one of those golden-hearted treasures, a trailing plant that drapes itself over pot edges like a soft ribbon of sunlight. Her name might sound humble, but there's a quiet elegance to the way she grows. With round, coin-shaped leaves that shimmer in chartreuse or bright yellow-green. Creeping Jenny lights up shaded corners and softens sun-drenched containers alike. She's not fussy about where she grows as long as she gets a little water and a place to spill over. This plant shines in containers. Place it near the edge of any pot, whether beside a stately hosta-bold coneflower or a mound of coral bells, and she'll begin her gentle cascade downward, catching light and turning even the plainest vessel into something graceful. In hanging baskets, she becomes a curtain of green gold, waving softly in the breeze. Creeping Jenny thrives in both sun and partial shade, though in full sun, she may take on a more golden hue, while in shadier spots, her leaves deepen to lime green. She prefers moist, well-drained soil and will thank you for consistent watering, but if you forget now and then, she's forgiving and hardy enough to bounce back. She's not a flower, but she doesn't need to be. Her glow comes from her leaves, that gentle spill of color, the softness she brings to a container's edge, and the way she quietly holds everything together. She is the finishing touch, the gentle frame to your garden's portrait. Creeping Jenny reminds us that beauty isn't always in standing tall. Sometimes it's in reaching outward and softening the hard places and lighting up what surrounds you. And really, isn't that what makes a garden and a life feel whole? So here we are, dear friend, after a gentle stroll through pots and petals, scents and stories. And perhaps the loveliest truth of all is this: a garden doesn't have to be grand to be meaningful. It doesn't need perfect soil or youth or strength. It only needs a willing heart and a few quiet containers filled with hope. You've seen that even with limited space, limited energy, or limited means, you can still create something deeply beautiful. A small pot of lavender becomes a place of rest. A hosta in a shady corner brings calm. A cascade of creeping Jenny turns a porch step into poetry. Each plant you choose is a whisper of care for yourself, for the earth, and for whatever season you're in. Container gardening isn't about doing more, it's about doing differently. It lets you move things when you need to. It meets you where you are seated on the porch, leaning against the rail, holding your morning tea. These plants understand you. They grow quietly. They ask for little. And in return, they bring pollinators perfume, color, and the peaceful rhythm of life unfolding slowly. Maybe you used to dig and plant full beds. Maybe those days are behind you. But the joy, the creativity, the dignity of growing something lovely with your own hands, that's still yours. And so I ask, which one called to you today? Was it the soft frill of dianthus, the sturdy bloom of coneflower, or the silver threads of lamium glowing in shade? Whatever it was, I hope it brings you joy. And I hope you'll come back again to dream and dig with me gently always gently. If this video brought you a little inspiration, a little calm, I'd be so grateful if you'd give it a thumbs up and subscribe. We're building something beautiful here together. Until next time, happy gardening. And may your hands always remember how to create beauty.